Yo, what is up guys? It is your boy Joey P back at it again with another video. Today we're going to talk about The Many Saints of Newark. Now I saw this last night, opening night, and I did record my first audio and I sounded half asleep because I did it at 12 o'clock in the morning, and we're going to redo it. And I actually have some differing opinions from when I did the first rendition of the audio, and I have watched a lot of videos, a lot of people talking about this movie, not too positive. It's a very decisive movie, to say the least, and we're going to talk about it. Mainly, we're going to rant. I'm sorry. This movie bombed in my eyes. For one, my name's Joe Picariello, and I'm a videographer, and I make short films when I can, but most importantly, I'm a Sopranos fan. Originally, I'm a diehard Breaking Bad fan, and we have an area where we can coexist, okay? I made a few videos on my channel where I compared Breaking Bad and The Sopranos, and I even did a video of me live reacting to the finale of Sopranos because I actually watched it for the first time recently. So I'm a pretty recent Sopranos fan, I gotta say. I've never heard anything about the ending, so it was a pretty interesting watch. So if you guys are interested in that, links down below to those videos. Anyway, The Many Saints of Newark. I saw the trailer, and I was like, okay, seems kind of cool, but I only really was interested in watching it because it was a Sopranos movie. If it wasn't a Sopranos movie, I wouldn't have seen it. Let's just be real. I really wasn't having many expectations for this film. I kind of knew deep down, I'm like, this is really not going to turn out too well. Let's just get into it. My whole thought process of the movie. I'm going to walk you through what I was thinking as the movie was unfolding. Spoilers ahead, please. If you have not watched The Sopranos or The Many Saints of Newark, turn this video off right now. I swear to you. Don't even watch The Many Saints of Newark if you've never seen The Sopranos. Within the first 5 minutes, it's a huge spoiler for the whole show. I sat down in my seat, and the movie opened with the graveyard sequence, and I actually thought that was really beautiful. I didn't exactly know what was going on at first, but as soon as I realized it was the present day, and we were seeing Christopher's gravestone, and we were hearing his narration, I'm like, this is absolutely gold. And I had this feeling, I'm like, you know what? Maybe they're going to show Tony Soprano's gravestone next to his, and they're going to confirm that he's dead, just as El Camino, spoilers for El Camino and Breaking Bad, just as El Camino confirmed Walter White was killed. Spoiler alert, they didn't do that. They should have. That would have been really great. Then the next 10 minutes of the movie came about, and I was actually getting pretty interested in the movie. I'm like, this is really good. The banter between the characters are great. Ray Liotta's character in the beginning was great. Dickie's character was great. The side character of Harold was interesting. And then I had this feeling, as soon as Ray Liotta's father character died, I felt something, and I'm like, this doesn't sit right with me, but okay. I remember in the trailer, Ray Liotta was sitting in a prison, so maybe this guy wakes up and he's alive. But no, Dickie pours gasoline on his dead father, and I'm like, this guy's not waking up. And I'm thinking, like, where does this Ray Liotta character come from? The next scene, the next very scene after we see his dad blow up, the next scene, they bring back the actor to play a different character, the twin brother. And I groaned in my seat. I'm like, you cannot be serious. This stereotypical cliche writing trope, lots of P's, the stereotypical writing trope they're using in this movie, the highly intellectual David Chase, the mastermind, the god himself, uses the twin brother trope. Alright. I was like, that didn't sit well with me. Then the movie continued for another 20 minutes, and they focus really heavily on the Newark riots, and naturally, it's very race-centered. So, granted, you're having a few lines where certain characters are being racist, you have the police officers brutalizing black people. And you know what? I don't really like getting into politics too much. However, I don't really like seeing it in my media. I came to watch a Sopranos movie. I was not trying to watch a biopic on the race riots. So, and you know what? We had a pretty brutal summer with these riots. I'm like, do we really need to go over this again? We already know this how bad the 60s were. Do we need to tread on this territory? And I was trying to think of how this was going to play into the movie, and ultimately it did not play any role in the film. And then the Harold character started to turn. He was Dickie's kind of runner. He did duties for him. He was his worker. And for some reason, I must have blinked and missed it, but Dickie's helper, Harold, really wanted out for some reason. He wanted out. He went to some dumb poetry jam and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna kill this Italian, insert Italian slur. The second act of the movie is about Harold trying to kill Dickie. And I just felt that was an odd choice, and, ultimately, Dickie's gonna die in the end. We know how in The Sopranos, it opens already with Dickie dead, and we know that Christopher gets his revenge by killing this rogue cop. So in my head, I'm like, alright, Dickie's gonna die. Is this black guy gonna do it? Is it gonna be like a whole race thing because of the times? And they're teasing this throughout the entire movie. And then at that point, that was when I was realizing that this movie might not turn out the way I thought. Especially because it kept intercutting between Dickie's life and his family and Harold. What was Harold doing? Anytime it cut back to Harold, I was immediately turned off. Not because of his political affairs or his beliefs. It's just it didn't fit in the movie. I did not like the Harold character at all, period. He was useless. Cut him out of the movie, nothing changes. And then Dickie's lover / Guma is killed. He kills her because she slept with Harold. How can you sleep with Harold? I mean, come on. That was an obvious, stab to the heart over here. I kind of liked how she slept with him and then Dickie found out and he killed her. Kind of how, Christopher's very aggressive with women, so it made sense. But, like everything in this movie was so freaking rushed. They rushed the scene of him beating his father to death. They rushed the scene of him drowning his girlfriend. And they rushed the scenes of him and the twin brother in the prison talking about good deeds to fulfill their souls, to get rid of all these bad choices they've made. They blow past all this crap. And in the very end, Harold meant nothing. He was not the one that killed Dickie. In fact, it was Uncle June that ordered the hit. You gotta be out of your mind to think that was a great idea. I know a lot of you might think it was cool. In the moment, it was cool, but when you think of it like this, when you think of it as a movie, a 2-hour runtime, it doesn't work. When you think of it in the context of the whole Sopranos, timeline, I guess it makes sense that Uncle June would do something like that. Because throughout the movie, you had small hints that Dickie was this superior person than Uncle June. Whether it was the comments that Johnny Boy made, whether it was because, Dickie looked down on him and laughed at him when Uncle June slipped and fell. But all those moments, they were played for comedic beats. They weren't played as serious character motivational steps. So when they revealed that Uncle June ordered the hit, I saw a review somewhere where I was on IMDb. This particular person said, it would have been much better if somehow Tony Soprano, as a teenager, knew the real killer of Dickie and purposely kept it from Christopher, so in the TV show The Sopranos, when he sends him to kill this cop, now with new context, we know that's nonsense. In reality, that cop may have well been the guy that shot Dickie. He wasn't the guy that ordered the hit, but he was the guy that physically shot him. I felt like if they didn't want to go the miniseries route, they at least could have made this a trilogy and have Dickie killed at the end of the trilogy, not at the start of the trilogy. If the whole trilogy is about Dickie, why kill him off in the beginning? This movie doesn't make sense. It's such a love-hate relationship right now. I love the camaraderie amongst the cast. I love the characters. Even though there was no character development, they didn't have any special scenes that really fleshed out who they were as people. They were just caricatures of what we know. I still enjoyed it. The fan service, I still enjoyed it. The plot sucked. This is a different form of medium. When you take television series writing and you transfer it to a movie, it's so different. It's so different. You have 3 acts, pretty much, that you have to fulfill. The act 1 is the beginning, the setup. Act 2 is kind of where the tension starts, and then Act 3 begins the climax and it makes its way downhill to the conclusion. This is a challenge to you right now in the comment section. Try to describe how you would break down this movie in acts, whether it's Acts 1 to 3 or Acts 1 to 5. What is the climax? Where does Act 2 begin? Because off the cuff, I can't even think of it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. The plot doesn't work. Me and my friends that saw the movie, we're kind of having the same issue. And let me talk about one thing while it's on my mind right now, while we're talking about, the cast and whatnot. The actor who played Paulie, I think he did a great job. He didn't have any standout scenes. He was in the background doing his impersonation. It was a great bit, especially when they were putting the impact gun in the guy's mouth in the garage, and, Paulie made a comment about his suit. I thought that was great. The only person I thought was miscast was the guy that played Silvio. I hate to rag on him. I thought he did great in the movie Overlord as this, pompy, prissy Brooklyn New Yorker. In this movie, though, his accent, his real-life accent, doesn't seem to mesh well with Silvio's character, and at times he felt very over the top, like it was an SNL sketch. I'm going to share you a quick story when I was watching this in the theater. As soon as Silvio came on screen, just his physical embodiment, my audience laughed. We were all having a great time, oh, this guy's amazing. And then he opened his mouth. The actor opened his mouth, and I'm not even joking you, my theater went silent. It was all goofs and gaffs when he wasn't speaking, and then he opened his mouth. And I'm telling you, abruptly went silent. We were like, this is Silvio? They cast this guy as Silvio? Silvio, as a caricature, would have worked if he didn't have any standout scenes, but because the guy was really playing him so exaggeratory, I'm not sure if that's a word, he was playing him with such emphasis, it just didn't work. The movie's runtime as well is a huge problem. As I kind of alluded to before, the movie felt so rushed. It rushed through all these death scenes that meant something. It rushed through all the tension. It rushed through the camaraderie dialogue scenes. And the movie is only 2 hours long. They could have at least made this 2 hours, 45 minutes, and I think it would have helped the film immensely. This movie, in a sense, felt like it was Justice Leagued, referring to DC putting a certain time constraint on the Justice League movie after Zack Snyder stepped down and they had Joss Whedon hop in. That movie, I believe, was an hour and 45 minutes to tell this grand story, and Zack Snyder came back and retold it in, I believe, 5 hours. They cut a 5 to 4 hour movie down into an hour and 45 minutes. It feels the same exact thing here. Like they had a studio obligation to keep this movie at 2 hours and below. And that was a fatal mistake. You had movies like The Irishman that worked out great as long pieces. This movie could have benefited from an extra half hour. And my main problem is, when you take away that it's connected to The Sopranos, what is it? What is this movie? How would you describe it? Is it a mob movie? Not really. Because what kind of mob activities were going down? They had the cool scene with the impact gun in the guy's mouth. That was amazing. They had 1 or 2 or 3 people get shot in the street. Could you consider it a historical movie where they depicted the riots? Yeah, for the first half hour, and then it's forgot about it was riots because they did a time jump. Speaking of which, real quick, it was clearly said that Dickie's wife, his real wife, was infertile. She could not have children. Dickie said that. But yet, 5 years later, they have a baby. So who's the mother? Is it the Guma, the Italian broad? Or was there some miracle that they glossed over? They cut out a scene where they successfully conceived a child. Another huge disappointment was the underutilization of Tony Soprano in the casting. At this point, half the movie, Tony Soprano was a 10-year-old saying the F word a lot. They severely underused Michael Gandolfini. Granted, he wasn't perfect. This kid is not an Oscar-winning actor by any means. The whole marketing of having James's son play him, just as Ice Cube's son played him in Straight Outta Compton, that was a huge marketing tactic. And yet, he was in the movie for 15 minutes. There was really no point to have him in the movie anyway. They literally could have kept him at 10 years old by some random guy who has no affiliation with James Gandolfini and it would have been fine. It was a ploy to get people in the seats in the theater. It's disappointing. Overall, I enjoyed the camaraderie with the characters. The Sopranos, the TV show, is always great at how it wrote its dialogue with the characters and how they talked with one another. And for me, The Sopranos always had problems with its plot. You have to be a big brain nimnut to understand Sopranos, and I guess I'm not that person. Indiana Jones is a great film because of, one, Harrison Ford, and also its complex adventure plot that just is one mystery after another. Shows like Breaking Bad are amazing because they have amazing characters and they have nail-biting tension and they have thrilling moments where you want to binge watch each episode. I don't know any single person that binge watches The Sopranos. You can watch like maybe 3 episodes and then you're like exhausted because of how slow it is, how methodical it is, how big brain energy it is because of all the stupid dream sequences they put in there. Granted, I like them. It was just a joke, but you get my point. The Sopranos was never known for its plot. David Chase was never known for his plot. When you watch The Sopranos, are you watching it for the funny comedic moments, or are you watching because you're so invested in Phil Leotardo's plot to kill Tony? I don't think anyone really gives a rat's bum about Phil Leotardo's plan and New York's plan to kill Tony or his whole crew. So this movie has no plot. And in essence, it did The Sopranos right by not having a clear plot, by just having kind of be like, oh, this is a week in The Sopranos' life. This is kind of what we're doing. But for a movie, it felt aimless. It felt they had no direction. I personally define the word wokeness in terms of film as including political correctness when it has no place being there. I wouldn't say the movie Get Out was woke, because the racial aspect to the Get Out played throughout the whole movie. In The Sopranos, the Many Saints of Newark, the race riots had nothing to do with the plot and did not affect the family at all. It would have been different if they burned down Satriel's and they had to rebuild and there was a plot point about finding the people that burned it down. That makes sense. The plot points that revolved around the Sopranos family and the riots were Tony watched the fires, he saw buildings burning down, Dickie got hit in the head with a brick, and that was it. So I understand you're trying to set the foundation for why Tony grows up to be a semi-racist, actually he is racist, a racist, sexist bigot, but was this the time and the place to tell that? I've seen a lot of sources outside on the internet saying that they should have made this a miniseries, and I think that I completely agree with that. They dropped the ball here in making this a movie, and I can't help but compare this film to El Camino. Now, for those of you that have watched El Camino and are aware of Breaking Bad and whatnot, you would know that El Camino kind of received mixed reviews, just as The Many Saints of Newark did. However, El Camino works better as a movie compared to The Many Saints of Newark. One's a sequel, one's a prequel. I completely understand that. One continues the storyline with the original characters, the original actors, and one doesn't, and recasts. I actually like prequels a lot better than sequels. I like seeing how things led up to the events of the original movie. A lot of people don't like that. I do like that. So I was completely expecting to like The Many Saints of Newark much more than El Camino. But you know what? Watching this movie, The Many Saints of Newark, made me appreciate El Camino and the Breaking Bad universe a hell of a lot more. I gotta say, it is such a relief seeing how they did Breaking Bad and how amazing that show was, how amazing Better Call Saul is, and how good El Camino was. The best parts of El Camino, by far, were the flashbacks. The best parts of Saints of Newark were by far the characters and their camaraderie and their chemistry. The plot of El Camino, I did not mind. I only did not like the villain they had at the movie. I thought he was a half-baked villain. And the things I don't like about The Many Saints of Newark is the plot, period. Between the writer's tropes of the twin brother and the in-your-face euphemisms and metaphors and themes, in the Many Saints trailer, there was a scene where the baby, Christopher as a baby, was crying at the sight of Tony Soprano. And literally everyone knew that whole thing was like, oh, it's because Tony chokes him out. So the baby kind of senses it. We get it, alright? Tony's saying, oh, it's like he's scared of me or something. Alright, that's one swing on the dead corpse of the horse. And then there's this old lady next to him that says, well, babies can sense spiritual things, that has yet to happen. That's another swing on the dead horse. It's like, come on. How many times are you going to beat the dead horse? We get the point. Are you assuming that we're stupid, that we can't pick on subtle nods and references? And like I said, a lot of people did not like the fan service. My theater cracked up whenever Uncle June said his, catch line, you've never had the makings of Varsity Athlete, or your sister's C word. It was funny. And the quirks of Paulie and Silvio were funny. It was nice. So it's difficult to rank this movie. I would say when I came out of the theater, it was a solid 6.5 to a 7 out of 10. But now that I kind of sit on it more, it's leaning more towards a 6, unfortunately. David Chase, even though he's a smart, big brain Rick and Morty kind of character, he did not pull this off. He could have done a lot better. This was not worth, $15 a ticket. Overall, guys, I'm severely torn about this film. The good stuff is great. The bad stuff is bad. So when you have really good and really bad, you take the average. It's okay. And that's kind of how I see it. I did a reaction to the finale of the Sopranos TV show, and that was my first ever watch through. So if you guys are interested to see how I responded and reacted to the Sopranos finale, you can click that link in the description. I also made a pretty surface value analysis and comparison. There's a Breaking Bad episode, and I couldn't help but notice its similarities with a Sopranos episode. And I made a comparison to justify why I believe Breaking Bad is better than Sopranos. Has quite a lot of dislikes. So if you guys are Sopranos fans, you're probably not going to like that video. But, if you want to pick a fight with me in the comments section, go right ahead and do so. But let me know what you thought down in the comments. Specifically, give me one thing you loved about the movie, and give me one thing you really hated about the movie. Don't expect any more content from me for another month. But anyway, be sure to leave a like on the video, leave a comment if you leave a comment, subscribe if you're new on the channel, and between me, you, Tony, and Christopher's useless narration in the movie, have a wonderful day, and peace out.